Hi, everyone. Rick Slark from Slark Consulting Group, and we're very excited to have Tara Mcafferty here with us today to discuss HR. We're super excited about that. Um, I'm going to read Tara's bio. I know her and we've worked together, but just so she's not mad at me when I get off of here, I'm going to read this to make sure we got everything covered, right? So, and there's a couple key things in this bio that I think are really important to point out. So, I don't always say that, but that is true in this case. So Tara's a strategic and innovative human resource professional with over 25 years of experience in supporting companies and top executives, and this is a key part, as they translate their business vision into HR initiatives. Really important focus there, I think. So Tara is currently the owner of SOFO Solutions Focused HR, a consulting firm that helps businesses solve their HR challenges. Tara is she's an empowering leader with a unique perspective and appreciation that human capital, this again, I think is one of the key things, that human capital is every organization's greatest asset. It is the greatest differentiator. I heard a story this morning, actually, where somebody challenged the leadership of Wendy's to go through one of their own drive-throughs and watch that experience, and then go to the Chick-fil-A drive-through and watch that experience and see what they could learn, right? Because there is a value difference, basically, in the way of training and things like that. So I thought that was really apropos for this morning. Well, as a fractional strategist, I deal with businesses who have found their market and they're growing and they're developing. And many of them, owners and leaders, have never experienced growth like they are now, and they do not know what to do with their staff. They just have no idea. And it has become a really crucial issue in differentiation and in business in general. And I was thinking that Bob Dylan wasn't wrong when he sang his song, Times Are a Changing, and they certainly are in HR. So welcome. And what would you like to say to get us started?
Thank you. Well, again, thanks for inviting me.
Sure.
I love talking about HR and talking about small businesses. That's been the focus of my business, is helping small businesses. Because like you said, like I said, the people are the key to the success of small businesses, and also can be one of the more challenging areas for a business owner to keep up on, and can present some of the most challenging problems. So excited to be here.
Yeah. And the goal for today is to just be really practical, to be really down to earth, and provide those that are listening with some really important and practical steps that they can implement right away, or at least give them some direction as to what they can do to give them a next step or so. And I think that they will greatly appreciate that. So, at the time of this taping, it's a Monday, and in the middle of this week, many companies are going to be reporting their profits and reporting their health um, over the next few days. That'll be coming out. And we know it's a tight market right now. We know that um, as people look at the tariffs, as people look at what to do, how is this going to shake out, there is some apprehension. There's a lot of confusion. So in this tight market that I would agree that we can all agree that it is right now, um,
Yeah.
how do these small, and I'm just going to read the question that came in. So many small and mid-sized organizations are struggling to find and keep good people. What's one practical shift leaders can make in their hiring approach today to improve those results? That's a good question they asked.
It is a good question. And I think it's one of the most important challenges that businesses face, uh, especially small businesses in terms of growing, is finding that staff when they need them. And things have changed. Things have changed a lot in the last 5 years. There was a big change um, around COVID when the job market, kind of fell, nobody's getting employed, and we haven't really come back to the what it used to be. Um, and the past several years have been defined by one side of the equation saying we can't find the employees we need, we can't fill our open positions. And the other side of the equation is a lot of people who are job seeking who say it's very hard to find jobs. And on the surface, that seems like a really easy problem to solve. Why can't we just bring these two sides together? But it turns out it's a lot more complicated than that. Because our society has changed so much, both sides of the table have different expectations about what that means, what a good staff person looks like. And people looking for work have a different expectation of what a good job looks like. So, pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. The first thing I would say is, um, and we'll probably talk about it more, but people don't have the bandwidth or the attention span that we used to have. So everything that you do to attract applicants to your process needs to respect their time and energy. If you have a really long application process, they're going to drop out of that pretty quickly. If you have a really long interview process, people are going to drop out of that quickly. If it takes you a long time to get back to people once they've submitted their resume or their application, they're going to move on from that. So everything you can do to be as timely as possible, I think, is the number one key thing. Is be on top of it, especially because if it's a good candidate and they're actively looking for work, somebody else is going to beat you to them if you take too long in your process. And that starts with the job posting and including your pay range. Um, Pay transparency is an important issue of the day, and it's another way that our society is changing. And there is a lot of research out there that says that you will miss up to 60% of the applicants just by not having your pay range in the ad. They'll just run right by it and not even be interested in it because they assume you're going to underpay them. So you can start with that and then streamline your process.
So you were coming kind of from the employee perspective in that conversation. Let's flip it a little bit to the employer side.
Okay,
And they are saying, I'll play advocate for the employer, right? So the
absolutely.
so let's say we have an employer, and there are some out there, that go, by God, I'm giving them the opportunity to work, and they should jump through my hoops, basically,
Mhm,
right? There are people like that out there
absolutely.
in business. Um, the other part of that would be, all right, Tara, you're telling me that I need to shorten my interview process and shorten my onboarding process and all of those things. How do I assure myself that I'm getting a good candidate and not, it's like dating, right? You go out on this date and then online they look great, right? But how do I ensure I need this long process to make sure that I get the right employee and I'm not hoodwinked basically by a shorter process?
That is a great question and a great point. Um, I started with the employee point of view because you can't find a great person if they aren't coming to you and applying. So making sure you have that easy to manage process is going to get you more people to choose from. But then, absolutely, how do we choose the right person? How do we make sure that our process is getting at what we need? And there are a couple of things that will play into that. One is you got to know what you need. you have to have put the time and energy in on the front end to define what it is you're looking for. And it's not just the black and white qualifications. I need somebody with a bachelor's degree in marketing and 5 years of experience with these various tools. Everybody's going to do that, right? But
Right.
do you know what the other pieces are? Do you know what other competencies or qualities are going to be important to the success of this person in your role in your business? And I like to have 3, 4, 5 descriptions, and it could be something like detail oriented. It could be quick decision making. It could be I was helping to recruit for a preschool and daycare, and it was affinity for kids, right? The very first thing we want is somebody who sounds like they like kids,
Yeah, yeah, you
right?
can't have me on there, right?
Exactly. Exactly. There are some of us who don't really want to spend all day with kids, but we may apply for the job because we need a job or
For
whatever.
sure.
And you
Yeah,
don't want to invest your time and money and have them create situations where your clients and customers have bad experiences. So you want to weed them out. And those are the things that I look for. I don't create questions about, tell me how much you like kids, right? Because in an interview, we're going to say what we think you want to hear. So I look for those qualities to come out in the context of the conversation. So every time, if I'm looking for attention to detail, or if I'm looking for affinity for kids, if that's what I've got on my paper that I want in this position, then every time I hear in one of their answers something that makes me say, this sounds like somebody who really enjoys being with kids, I'm going to put a check mark next to affinity for kids, or I'm going to put a check mark next to detail oriented. And anytime I hear something in the conversation that makes me think they didn't really enjoy being around kids or they don't really have good attention to detail, I'm going to put a check mark on the other side. And that's just another way of me to evaluate two candidates against each other. But I had to have sat down ahead of time and figured out what those 3, 4, 5 qualities are going to be.
yeah, and let's talk about that. I deal with this a lot, and this is part of my area, right, that I deal with as they're growing. And I ask this question, right, of every owner and their position, as well as the next job or whatever they're looking at. What does the company need right now? For us to move forward or us to stabilize, what does the company need? And
Right.
so they say to themselves, as the owner or the CEO or whatever, I need to get this off my plate, and this is a job I need, or this is a job we need as a company. Now, then asking the questions that right? What does this job description? And I find a lot of businesses that are being successful to a point, right? But now they're hitting a lot of complexity because they don't know what the next job description is, right? They've never written a job description or they have no.
Right.
And a lot of times it's just what Joe and Mary did beforehand, right? Well, they need to get away from what Joe and Mary did and say, what does this job need? Right? What does this job
Right.
really entail? Right? So I
Right.
love I love what you brought up there. So that's an excellent point. So I have another question about that's kind of coming off of. As you know, business and government work a lot together, hand in hand. We really need each other uh, to create a community and a climate of growth.
Yeah.
Um, what do we do or what do we say to our community about helping us in workforce development? Let's say, for instance, there's AI coming and our community's not well equipped or we don't have a lot of trained people for that. How do we have a conversation with government or should we to help us get more training and more skilled labor?
I think as business owners, it is very important for us to stay tied into our communities and our governments as much as we can to talk about what the needs are because government can't exist very well without a strong tax base. And a strong tax base comes from a strong business community. That's where the jobs come from, that's where the taxes come from the businesses paying taxes, from the property being worth money, and from people paying their individual income taxes. So and we can't really exist well without a government supporting us with all of the infrastructure and things that we need. So we do work together, and I think we have to stay in contact. So look for those opportunities for you as a business owner to be engaged in those conversations, whether it's joining a chamber, joining an industry group, etc. Going when you have the opportunity to hear your congressman or your senator or your local government leaders speak, and make sure that you are sharing your perspective so they understand it. And trying to stay up to date on what government is doing, because government we tend to think of as this big entity, right? Kind of this faceless government. But the government is made up of the people around us, right? Especially at the local and regional level. These are our neighbors.
Yes.
These are the people who live in our communities. And they honestly, almost 100% of them, I haven't met 100% of them, but I would say most of them, if not all of them, really are serving because they care about their communities and they want to do the right thing and they want to make a difference. And so they're constantly looking for ways to create programs or to address needs or things like that. For example, some of the listeners may be aware and some may not, that Ohio has something called TechCred, which is a program that will pay for and reimburse you for your employees to obtain technical training. And they have a very broad definition of what technical training is. It can be as simple as learning to use Microsoft Excel and as complicated as AI or robotics programming, right? It can be, they have a application process. I think it's every other month that they open applications, and then you can apply and have things go. So there are programs out there, but a lot of us haven't heard of them.
Very
And so
good.
being in connection with, your local chamber, with your local, you know, uh, whatever office that can help you do that, staying in contact with your industry groups, sharing those things when you find out about them. I'm sure, Rick, you do. When I learned about TechCred, the first thing I did is go through my client list and say, which of these small businesses may have never heard of TechCred, and making sure that they know what it is and how to access it, and who I can put them in contact with, because that's clearly not uh, in the realm of what I do. But training can be in the realm of what I do, and having that as an asset that I can share and say, you know what, if you need your staff to know this or this, let's figure out whether or not we can find a way to pay for that through TechCred, etc.
Yeah, I love that. And
So
we will put that in the show notes too, the link to that so they can
excellent.
get that. So I think that's a great point. And again, a real good tool they could use for
Yeah.
sure
Well, and
to do that.
since the, dawn of time, practically, technology changes.
Yes.
Right now, it's changing faster than ever before right now. But I just finished a rewatch of Downton Abbey. And, at the beginning, when they're talking about electricity and the drama over whether or not to have a phone installed,
Yeah, for sure.
and that, oh my gosh, now they have a car, and all of that up through, um, you know, are they going to, if people rejected the car because it was going to take away jobs from the people who made buggies and horsewhips, of course it's going to. AI is going to change jobs. There are some jobs that will go away because of AI, but there are a whole bunch of jobs that are going to be created because of AI. And all of the jobs that involve human interactions, caregiving, I think AI will change teaching, but it's not going to take all of teaching away. It's not,
Right.
there are lots of ways that it's going to change. Um, if you completely ignore or try to, resist some of the changes, then you're going to fall behind. So be open to understanding the changes and figuring out, how can this make what I do better? How can this make what we do easier, faster, more profitable? Is there some way that I can embrace this change that I'm not really excited about? HR seems to be an obvious place that AI could take jobs, right? You can just ask AI, what should I do? Um, the thing that I offer that you're not going to get from AI is the ability to personalize my advice based on your specific situation, on your business, your industry, your culture. I don't just read what the rule is and spit it back out to you.
Hmm.
I understand how this rule is going to impact your business and what the barriers to you doing this are. I've said for a long time that HR can't exist in a vacuum. We can't do HR just for the sake of HR. People tend to think of HR as being all about compliance, all about making sure that the rules are followed. And a lot of small businesses uh, don't really want HR. If they had a corporate experience, they didn't like HR and they think HR is just going to tie my hands. They're going to make it hard. And my approach is to say, I need to make it easier, faster, or less risky for you to do whatever it is you do. That's the point of HR. I need to be contributing to how it is this business makes money by making it easier for you to make money because I'm taking away some of the challenges to make it faster for you to make money because I can help you find that person in 2 interviews instead of 5 interviews, or less risky because you're not having to deal with high cost, risky situations. All of those things contribute to you having a better bottom line, and that's how HR can be helpful. And that's going to be hard for AI to do
Gotcha.
me,
Very good.
but it's definitely a tool that I use.
So let's get off of hiring in a tight market and just give me one or two steps just that you maybe have covered. Let's clean that up and just one or two things to hire in a tight market. One would be what?
The first one would be put your wage scale on your job postings because that's going
Okay.
to increase the number of people who are willing to apply to your job, which makes it easier for you to find the person you're looking for.
Number two.
Number two is to take the time to define what it is you're looking for. So you know, if you're just waiting until you meet the right person, you'll know them when you see them, that kind of thing. That's what's going to make you have such a long process and why it's going to feel like you haven't been able to find the right person because you haven't actually defined what the right person is.
Yeah. How would you know, right?
Exactly.
If you don't have a description. Yeah. All right, great. Thank you for that. All right, let's talk now. We had another question that was about employee retention and engagement. And it says turnover is expensive. Turnover employees is expensive. What signals should leaders be watching for an employee that may be disengaging? And how can they intervene before it becomes a resignation? So, are there some signs that you could see? Number one, and then let's just talk about beyond that question a couple of things. There is no question it is much cheaper to retain an employee than to hire and try to find a new one, and it's a lot less hassle.
Yes.
So what are we looking for? The question was, what are we looking for a disengaged? What signals kind of tell us that? And then beyond that, what are some couple, two or three things we could do to create a good environment and keep our employees?
Okay, absolutely. So things to look for, I think again, the our society has given us a very short code word for what we're looking for, and that's quiet quitting, right? That
Yeah,
has been something people have been talking about, and that looks like a decline in performance or initiative. So either, and it doesn't mean that they have to be like performing badly, but somebody who used to be a go-getter and who had everything done early and now is doing things just under the wire or barely doing enough, that's a sign that somebody's disengaging, right? Or that something else is
sure.
going on in their life that you want to talk to them about. Maybe it's not work related, but it's still something that you should notice. Um, Somebody who's withdrawing from meetings or conversations, so they don't contribute as much. They don't come to the meetings, or when they do come, they just sit there and they don't actually talk or give thoughtful contributions. Um, in this Zoom world, people that tend to turn their cameras off more. Now, some organizations have a very camera off system, and that's great. If you have a camera on system and somebody is all of a sudden more camera off, they're probably feeling a little more disengaged. Um, Less collaboration and connection, less willing to partner with people, asking for help less, asking for input less, people noticing that they're harder to get a hold of or slower to respond.
Great. Yeah, that's a good one.
All of those are things, or even talking less about the future. All of a sudden, they don't talk about what they want to do next, or being excited about this project that's coming up next year, or stop going to networking events, things like that. Can all be signs that people are disengaging.
Great.
So, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we've started by having a process by which we're having in regular conversations, whether it's a regular supervision meeting, whether it's management by walking around. That's how old I am, as I still remember that, management by walking around
Sure.
as a
Yeah.
thing. Do you start your day by saying hello to your employees and checking in with them? How's it going? How was your kids baseball game last night? What do you know about the people that you're working with, and how do you stay connected with them? Have a one-on-one conversation with them, and make sure that the conversations are open-ended, giving them the opportunity to tell you what's going on. How do you feel about your workload these days? It's been pretty busy since we got this new project. How are things going for you? Um, Things like that, and listen for the underlying stress or the unmet needs that they may have. um, when you take on new projects or see growth, sometimes we have to, growth comes in spurts, right? So we're pretty comfortable here. We get a new project and we don't want to say no to it, but it's really going to tax our systems. Like,
Hmm.
we had to grow to here.
Yep.
Um, but we're not quite staffed for here yet, and that means everybody has to be a little be aware of those. It's a normal process of building your business, that you're going to grow past your capacity for a second and then have to catch up, and then we tend to do that. But talk to people about it. Give them an expectation of what the time frame is. If we do this project, it's going to be 6 weeks of being really busy, but then we're going to be in a position where we're going to add staff and it's going to whatever. So I think a lot of people can handle a lot of things if they have an expectation of what's going on and what it's going to look like at the end. Um, and sometimes we don't always have that clear expectation as leaders. We think we know what's going on. And so good communication is important, letting them know what we do know and what to expect. And then always connecting all of this back to purpose. That is another change in our world, is that, uh, when I was growing up, my work ethic that my parents instilled in me is, if you go to work doing your best and you get a paycheck, and that's, you go to work, you do the work, you take the money, you go home.
Hmm.
And you feel good about yourself because you did all those things.
Hmm.
People these days are looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking to have their work mean something to them. They want to feel like their work is important. And so when people are disengaging, they're probably missing one of those pieces. They no longer feel like they belong. They no longer feel like their work is important. They don't understand the purpose. So if you can tie back what's happening to those things for them, that'll help re-engage them as well.
So let's break that down into, let's say, two or three things that this owner could do or this leadership could do to keep engagement in the employees. So one would be what? The most
Conversation.
important.
Yep. Most important is conversations, both maybe a team meeting and one-on-one meetings with your staff. Keeping that communication open. That's when you're going to notice when they're disengaging, and that's when you're going to have an opportunity to influence what's making them disengaged.
Number two.
Number two is to think about what's important to them and how to tie back what you're doing to what's important to your business and what's important to your employees. Um, we ha- Money is always important, right? if we
Yep.
didn't care about the money, we'd volunteer there. So even if we're working for an organization that we believe in the mission, when I spent 10 years working in a nonprofit, I spent 5 years in healthcare. These are businesses where the purpose is very obvious and very meaningful to the people who are there, but they're still there for a paycheck, right?
Yes.
Or they wouldn't be there. They just volunteer. So the money is important, but in our world these days, I, without getting into all of the things that have changed in our culture, but people are hungry to feel like they belong, to feel like their life has a purpose. And just feeling like another cog in the wheel doesn't do it for a lot of people. So finding a way to match the purpose and the mission of your organization and what you're trying to do with the employees, and that comes from step one, which is communication, understanding what it is they're looking for, and then communicating how what you're doing meets that. And the more you can connect those dots for them, the more engaged they're going to be.
Yeah, I've seen constantly in people that they also like to know, and I think you're hitting on that here. How is what I am doing part of the greater good, right?
Mhm.
How they don't understand exactly, and a lot of the owners or leaders are very bad about this, is
Right.
to helping people understand that what you are doing is really important.
Yeah.
And here's why it's important. If we didn't have this piece that you may think is monotonous or whatever, but if
Right.
you didn't do this and do it well and do it, and if you weren't part of us, then that would really hurt us. And so understanding
Exactly.
that my role is important uh,
Exactly.
to the team.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be world changing. You don't have to,
Correct.
you're not
Right.
competing with Greenpeace,
They just
the
want to
Red
know.
Cross. They just want to know what's how they fit into the picture and why
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah. And I think that's very helpful. And it's a really small way, I think,
Hmm?
to really create some of that. Would
Yes.
there be another step, or do we have that pretty well covered that these would be the things you could do immediately to start doing?
I think those are the immediate things, and then always offering opportunities. Hardly anybody wants to think that they'll be doing 10 years from now exactly what they're doing now. So sharing the picture, sharing what the future looks like for both the company and for this employee will help them to stay engaged as well.
I think that is really important third step right there too, is that yeah, you're not this could be more than what you
Yes.
have now.
Yes.
I want to ask one. We're running out of time, but I've got one question that I really it's kind of I think well I run into it all the time. And there is a thing that I say about this. When you're growing a company and things are in constant change, you're constantly growing, you're constantly reorganizing, you're constantly developing. I personally don't think it's wise to hire a person for a set position forever, right? And I wanted to get your take on this because what I see in these companies, you may be in this role for a period of time and then we may need you somewhere else, or you may be able, as the employee, to your skill level is such that you can handle this while we're here.
Hmm.
But it becomes too much for your skill level or development if we do this. And
Right.
or we may need you in another place and we need to move you around.
Hmm.
Talk to me really briefly about that role and about owners not cementing people, especially now. This would be for growth companies that are growing quickly. Things are changing, things are moving, and we constantly are trying to figure it out, right? Uh, to not cement a person in a position. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is very tempting, especially when you're a small business and you find somebody you like, to say, oh, this is the person, or to build a position around the person. And
Yes.
neither of those are going to help you long term in the success of your business. So I always tell people that you need to think about what the roles and responsibilities in your business are without people. What needs to be done and what does that look like? Even if and I literally just helped an organization do this who had been around for a long time and felt like they hadn't like their current staffing, people had taken on things that didn't really relate to their duties as times
Sure.
changed, and and so they're like, well, but he's really good at this. And I'm like, that's great. We'll get to the who does what, but first we have to say what needs done. And then we can put people into the roles. Um, and and it's okay if you have an eye to not wanting to let anybody go in this process, but we first have to define without the idea of any particular person, because none of these people are guaranteed to be there forever for either reasons that fit the business or reasons that fit the employee. My spouse got a job in Wyoming, or I got this great opportunity for double the salary. I'm going to have to take it. Or, my mom got sick and now I have to quit my job and take care of her. We change jobs for lots of reasons. So even if
Yeah.
I've been there a long time and seem very committed, you can't build your company around a person. You have to
Right.
really think about it that way. And when you do that, when you create that way of working, that what we're doing is about what's best for the business, and then I'm going to fit you into where you best fit in this business, that gives people the opportunity to be successful and also to see their growth opportunities and to give them a new uh, thing to work on and a new challenge to take on and a new way to share their skills. Because even if I thought I could be the director of finance, so I started out as the accounting person, and now you're growing, and now you need a director of finance. And I think, well, I've been here since the beginning. I should be the director of finance. I may feel that way, but if I'm put into a job that I can't do, that is not going to be a win for either of us. It's going to drag the
Correct.
company down, and it's not going to be great for the employee. So having that conversation can be a difficult one, but framing it in a way that um, makes sure that they know that we understand their value and what they bring, and we want them to grow, and we'll work with them if they're interested in growing. We'll work with them to find opportunities to grow, but I'm not going to put you in a position in which you're going to fail um, to the point that I either have to get rid of you or you want to leave.
Yeah, and I think this is important, and I don't want to stay on it a great deal of time, but I do want to say that I think this is important for the owners to understand that if you're in this high growth mode, things are rapidly going to be changing. And you need, as I mentioned at the very beginning, to identify what the company needs that job to be, not what Joe and Sally did, right? It is
Right,
what does the company need? We can't build around personality, just like you said. But I
right,
also think it's crucial that we say to that employee, this is where we need you right now. But in the future, we may need you and your skill in other places. And what that does is set expectation that when things aren't working out or when we need them to move somewhere else, they don't look at it like, oh, I'm not doing a good job and they're
exactly.
moving me somewhere else. You're setting expectations. And if you're an owner, that's one thing you really need to do is that
Yes,
you understand that this is it could be permanent, but probably not.
right,
And that you need to set the expectation so that your employee understands when you need to move them. This is nothing they did wrong. This is
right,
something we had talked about early on, and
exactly.
you are gonna participate and help us in a new role or uh,
And if you've done a
another
good
role.
job in those conversations, you'll be able to share with them how this matches what you want out of your job and your career trajectory.
Correct. And it's a development tool
Yes,
at that point. All right. So that's really good. Well, you mentioned one thing here, and we're going to just spend a couple minutes on this, and that's conflict. You mentioned that this is a hard conversation to have, and business is a lot of hard conversations, right?
it is.
So the question is, or it's kind of a statement, but it says managing conflict and tough conversations. So conflict is inevitable. What is your best advice for leaders who avoid tough conversations until it's too late. So let's see, let me try that again. It's kind of written a little weird. Uh, what's your best advice for leaders who avoid tough conversations until it's too late? In other words, they see the problem, but they don't want to deal with it, and it only gets worse. So how do we stop doing that? Or
Yes.
some kind of conversation about that.
Well, my tough love answer is you're going to have to put on your big girl pants and deal with it. If you're going to be the owner, you're going to have to recognize when it needs to be had, and you're just going to have to do it. We have to do hard things. Um, but sometimes that can mean recognizing that that's not your skill set and finding other ways to do that. That might mean hiring somebody to help with HR. That might mean hiring a supervisor or manager in between you and those staff who does have those skills, right? None of us as business owners know everything about everything and are good about everything. So if that's not your skill, and you're willing to recognize that and find a solution to that, that's great. But ignoring problems never makes them go away. Problems, especially related to staff or difficult conversations, do not resolve themselves on their own. If you have a problem with an employee who's doing something or not doing something or whatever, and you think, I'm just going to ignore it, it'll stop, or if they'll get the hang of it and they'll do it right. No, and that conversation is 10 times harder in a month or 2 months or 3 months than it would have been if you'd had it at the beginning. So,
Right.
you don't have
And
to jump on every issue instantly, right? Because people are going to have ebbs and flows. But when there's something that's staring you in the face that you know you need to take care of and you don't want to take care of it, that should be a sign that that it needs to be addressed. And when I talk to managers and supervisors, there's a lot of tools that you can use. Always try to start from a place of understanding. And my go-to question is there any good reason? Is there any good reason why this report was late? Is there any good reason why this proposal had a pricing error? Is there any good reason why our customer believes that you told them XYZ? Is there any good reason why, whatever the situation is? Because sometimes there is a good reason why, I just can't see it, right? So
yeah,
we don't start out adversarial with, you did this wrong and I'm angry. I may be angry and I may think you did it wrong, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell me the circumstances surrounding it. That also will help me figure out how to solve the problem. Is it a they can't do it problem, right? So if they can't do it, then do I need to retrain them? Did I put them in the wrong role? The solutions are very different to this is a can't do it problem to a won't do it problem. They've been doing it fine, or they completely are able to do it, but they don't agree with me and they're not going to do it, or they were angry and they're trying to get back. Like, won't do it is a totally different response from me as a manager than can't do it. Um, and having that conversation of, tell me how we got here. Tell me what made you decide to do XYZ. I want to understand how you came to the conclusion that that was the direction to go, because that's going to help me understand how to fix the problem. And it takes a little bit of the um, anxiety out of it for me, because then I'm in problem solving mode instead of uh, feeling angry or threatened or like, oh my gosh, this is a disciplinary problem. Not yet. First, we got to understand what's going on. This is just a conversation. There
yeah.
may be a disciplinary problem. I also like to have bullet points or even an actual script. And this is where AI can be a tool. Hey, AI, I need to have a conversation with a 25-year-old warehouse worker about his ongoing attendance problem. Give me a script. Or even, did you know you can role play with AI? Especially, I'm most familiar with Chat GPT, but you can actually click on the little microphone and have a conversation with them, and they will pretend I'm even calling it a person, and Chat GPT will pretend to be the person that you described so that you can practice that conversation before you go have it.
I think those are all great things. Basically, don't wait.
Don't wait.
Yeah, and don't go in with these preconceived notions of what happened, right? So
Yep.
be
Yep.
open, but don't wait. I think that's super important.
Wait,
Well,
if you're angry, wait 5 minutes or wait until tomorrow. Don't have the conversation when when you're angry.
yeah, with
Don't
your
wait a
man.
month because you didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll write that down. That's good advice for me.
Yeah. It was
Um,
hard learned for me too.
yeah, for sure. So, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, Tara. The
Thank you.
great conversation, I think, and I think it'll be really helpful for people, uh, the audience, as they are able to listen and to write some things down and have some steps that they can take practically.
Yeah.
So let's go. Where can they most read? Where's the best place for the audience to reach you if they have any questions or comments or anything? So you want to give us that? That'll also be in the show notes, but if you could go ahead and tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit my website, which is www.sofohr.com. There is a contact me, book a call with me, all of those links right there. You can also give me a call directly at 937-476-1568.
Great.
Happy to talk to anybody.
And I've worked, like I said at the very beginning, Tara and I have worked together, and I know that she's very capable
Thank you.
yeah, and very has a very important role. I would not want this role at all. And
Thank you.
yeah, so as we close, I always like to just wrap it all up. Big takeaway for today, or one thing that uh, they should consider, these leaders, owners, executive directors should take home with them today.
For most organizations, staff is your biggest expense and the biggest thing that controls whether or not you are able to accomplish your mission. So, investing in them, taking care of them, and having a plan is going to be the best use of your time and energy uh, for most people. There's a lot to do when you own a business. All roads lead to you, but taking care of your staff and investing some of that time and energy into that is going to pay off so much in the end because that's the most important tool you have in most cases to getting the work done.
Great. I love that. That's the last word. Thanks for listening today, Tara. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you in the next one.
All right.